This is Alexa Linton, and you're listening to the Whole Horse Podcast. I'm coming to you from the Cowichan Valley on beautiful Vancouver Island in Canada, and I'm excited to be bringing amazing instructors from around the world to share their knowledge about all the ways that we can keep ourselves and our horses well and happy, and about some of the cutting-edge techniques, training, and different aspects that are coming into the horse industry and changing it from within. I'm so excited you're here, and I'm excited about the times that we live in and the shifts that are happening in the horse industry before our eyes. Let's get started. Hi everyone, it's Alexa Linton here, and you're on the Whole Horse Podcast. And today on the podcast, I'm joined by Katey Campbell. She's sitting right here with me on the farm. Hello, Katey. It's always nice to have guests here, like in person. So really appreciate you driving 15 minutes over to my house.
A huge long distance.
And taking the time today to chat with us. So we're here at Firefly Farm in the Cowichan Valley in Canada. And Katey and I are keeping a nice good distance from each other because we're all in the midst of some interesting things in our world right now, as far as infectious disease and stuff. So but we didn't do the elbow bump this morning. We did not. Yes, and I hope you all out there are doing well and taking care of yourself out there. Today on the podcast with Katey, we're going to be chatting finally about the Masterson Method. Yeah, we haven't done this yet. So Katey is going to share with us a little bit more about her experience with that and her work with that. So tell us a little bit about the Masterson Method, my dear.
Yeah, for sure. So the Masterson Method was created by Jim Masterson out of the United States. It was originally developed to improve performance in equine performance horses. It is an integrated method of bodywork. It includes things like massage, craniosacral, trigger points, a lot of fascial work, and ting points as well. The main thing we're doing is trying to recognize signs of release in horses, and to help us find where tension patterns have occurred. Tension patterns happen from all different types of things. Repetitive work. It can happen from, tack, ill-fitting saddles, bridles, anything like that. Injury, stress.
So pretty much every horse needs this.
Yeah, so pretty much every horse needs this. What I learned to do and what you get taught in the Masterson Method is how to recognize signs of release in horses, which is something very interesting to me because growing up, I feel like I missed so many things. We missed
horses.
Horses. Listening to them and their communication style and their body language, really. So what I look for a lot of the time and what I've learned is, the subtle signs of release might be things like blinking, the type of blink, the softness of the blink, how far apart they are, twitching of lips, twitching of their chin, twitching of their whiskers, slight movements of their ears. All those things are subtle signs of release in horses. We can get to medium type of releases, which might be more things like fidgeting, shaking their head, picking up their legs,
yawning,
like
blowing.
That would be like the large releases, which would be, yawning, blowing, rolling their eyelids.
I call that like the mega release when they like do the yawn and the eyelids together. Yes, we've done good.
Those are the goods, right? That's what we're looking for. And, it's really in correlation to what I'm doing because, horses do all those things on their own when you watch them in a paddock. Well, that's a lie. Some horses never yawn. So when those horses yawn, it's a really big hurrah thing. But it's in correlation to what I'm doing, because horses are going to blink all the time. Horses are going to, shake and snore and sneeze, but it's in direct correlation to where my hands are on their body and how I'm touching them. And you can test it. For example, if I, hold my hand over a point in their neck and I'll run my hand along their cervical vertebrae, where they blink is where there's tension, and they're telling us that. So I'll go back and you can check it, and you'll find 2, 3, 4 times some spots they won't blink and some the exact same spots they will blink. And to me, that's just giving me information as to where they're holding on to tension in their body. These things I would have never noticed before, even sometimes I see now people petting their horse or holding their hand over their wither or something, and the horse starts yawning. And they're like, oh, my horse must be tired. And I'm like, no, your horse has tension there and you're helping him release it. Keep holding it there, right? So this modality is all about interacting with your horse. It's about them having a say, communicating with us and telling me where they're holding on to tension patterns in their body. And my job is to listen to them and help them work through that by different techniques. So really it spoke to me, because it's really, you're doing something with the horse and not to them. And that was, it said this, to people before I even started. That was a thing that just didn't resonate with me, is that I was always doing things to horses. That's what we're taught. We're doing things to them, but they don't really have a say. And it made me have this weird feeling in my stomach my whole life. I knew something wasn't quite right. And when I found this, I didn't get that feeling anymore. I felt like I feel so much more confident now in being able to, read horses, communicate with them, see where they're sore, and help them work through that in a way that they can participate.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah. And I love that recognition of, a lot of the times what we're taught is like, you do things to horses, and they put up with that, or whatever they do, right? Or they cope with that. And so to actually be in this communication with a horse and their body and what's necessary is a really beautiful thing.
Totally. And what I find really neat is what we talk about a lot in the Masterson Method is their brace. So my job as a body worker and doing this modality is to work underneath their brace response, because that's when you're going to be most effective. So if you're holding your muscle tight and your massage therapist is trying to work on those muscles, they're going to be a lot less effective than if your muscles are relaxed. And we can think about it and know that we need to keep our muscles relaxed, but horses don't think like that. They know it's uncomfortable, so they brace. So I have to work underneath that brace to help release the most amount of tension as possible. And when I say release tension, I can do that in lots of different ways. I mean, I can get into all these different ways of how I do that, but that's never ending.
Which we will.
But the biggest thing I have to do is work underneath that brace response to help them release the most amount of tension possible. And I do that by reading their signs of release and tension.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So and so what do you notice? I mean, I know that we chatted before the podcast about some of the really cool cases that you've been working with, and now that you've been doing this a while, I'm thinking you're able to see like a cool timeline of like horses really making big shifts, right? So where do you see this? It sounds like it can work for any horse. As I think, I'm personally biased towards body work. I think every horse needs body work. That's just me.
For sure.
Yeah. So, because we put all sorts of crazy, there's just a lot of stuff that goes into being a ridden, worked with, domesticated horse.
Totally. And on top of that as well, I think even horses, yes, the working horses, I think 100% need it. The non-working horses, I think they do as well, but I think people think maybe they don't. But horses they accumulate tension, and they actually can release some of it themselves. They try to, anyhow, they're really smart that way. But lots of things they can't. But if we think about how horses were started, if they've ever had a slip or a fall, if they were started with a halter and then tied to something,
pulled back.
They've tweaked themselves by playing with friends or when they're foals, like this stuff just accumulates.
Well, I'll even see birth trauma sometimes. So when they're coming through the birth canal, and like you said, like pullbacks, every horse that I've met pretty much has hit their head on something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Spend a lot of time getting better. So yeah.
So there's like lots of places where this can show up as helpful. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's really important. And I think you'd asked me about an interesting case. And I mean, I've got several. I mean, I find them all very interesting.
Yeah.
But this one particularly was quite fun for me and challenging, really challenging. But yeah, there was a horse that I started working on before the winter who had never really been successfully ridden through winter without tossing her human, being really uncomfortable, very just kind of snarky, didn't like to be touched. But yeah, the riding thing was dangerous. Yeah. Like, you know, she was it was like, oh, what's it going to be like when I come to the barn today? Like, will I survive kind of thing, right? Totally. And I hear about this a lot. This is just the first case that I got to work through, like beginning to end. And I will not ever forget the first day that we tried to, the first appointment that I went to with her, and we tried to work on her in her paddock, because I usually like to work on them in their stall or paddock. Yeah. I don't really like to cross tie unless there's no option. So I remember I went down there and I have the horse and just trying to do some very soft stuff with her. So when I first start working with the horse, I'll just test out, you know, their kind of signs of release and how extreme or subtle they are. And I would just had two of my fingers just resting, not even touching her, just resting above her pole. And she kind of seemed to enjoy it for a minute and kind of closed her eyes. And then she just said no, like, and my finger was probably 1.5 inches off her, and she reared up. And I was like, whoa, that was a big reaction. I hadn't had that happen before. And that was her just saying, that's too much for me. And so I had to really back off, and I was like inches off of her, and I left the pole and I went down the neck, and he had a few legs flying and a couple more kind of rears. And I was like, whoa, like there's a lot going on here. Like, holy smokes. So I had to really back off. I don't think I touched her front end from more than like 5 inches away.
Yeah.
And even that, she was releasing. She was shaking her head and she would start yawning. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on in here. I have to be so far away. That's how much tension was built up in her. And it's interesting. Sometimes people will watch me and they're like, you're not even touching the horse. And I'm like, no, you're right. I'm not touching the horse, but it's because that horse can't handle that amount of touch.
Yeah.
So this had been accumulated for a long time. This doesn't just come on all of a sudden. And, it made me a bit sad, because I was like, oh my gosh, what does this feel like for this horse? And I was like, oh, this is also a bit dangerous for me. But I felt like she needed it so bad that, we kind of stuck it out. We did go up. I did put her in the cross tie, and I spent a lot of time that day working on her hind end because she was more okay with that, and then trying to work my way forward. And that was the beginning of our journey together. And I've been doing her every 2 weeks now, all throughout the winter. And there were some days it was very challenging, but just reading her signs, her blinking, her twitching, I had to read the subtle signs with her. And off topic, but what it said to me was that she hadn't been listened to so much that she had to scream at us because she thought she had to scream for me to listen. I'm gonna cry. But that made me like persist through and just tell her over and over again, like, hey, I'm here and I'm gonna listen to you.
Totally.
And I did, and I kept listening, and her reactions got less and less. And the last month, we actually were able to go into her paddock, and I was able to do a session with her in her paddock. And to me, that was just, it took a long time, and it took a lot of listening. And, to me, it was huge. Like, I was like, this is like the biggest success, because we've gone from this horse that wouldn't even let me touch her to now she's like so relaxed. I can move around with her in her paddock, and it's like this dance of communication back and forth. And she knows she can just look at me, and she doesn't have to use her face or rear or her legs, for me to understand what's going on.
Totally. To try to get the message across.
Yeah. And even though the first few sessions were so hard, even after the first one, she started having safe rides on that horse. And so she's ridden her all winter without being tossed off.
Amazing.
So like that to me is just super cool. It's things like that make me want to get better and better and keep learning and do more to be able to help horses like that, right? And I've also helped the owner listen more to her horse because I give her lots of homework, and she does it, and they know they have a different communication. So as much as this is about the body work, it's also about having a deeper understanding and relationship with these animals. And I try and help owners have that as well, because I can grow that with their horse, but how cool would it be if the owners had that too? So
absolutely. And I think it's so critical because you coming out and doing a session is one thing, but then like her having her person build rapport like in the interim time is and think differently about how what she's needing, that she's not a bad horse, that she's just
got a lot going on
and trying to communicate that she's has soreness or pain or
super cool. So that's like that's one of the stories that always stands out in my head, because at the beginning I was like, whoa, like should I keep going with this? Like, is it safe for me? Can I make this somehow safe? And for me, safety in that point, because it was the cross size to begin with, not to like really constrain her, but more just for my safety, and then kind of work up from there. And it worked, which is great, because now we can do it in the paddock.
Totally. And I love, I've worked with some horses like that, and I can't say I've been as successful. And I think a part of it is a lot of my equine work is bodywork centric, which is hands-on. And so this is one of the things. So Katey came to the Whole Horse Apprenticeship Retreat last year as a student, and she was super gracious and shared some of the Masterson work during, just like showed us a few things. And I was blown away by, like, I think you worked on Diva. And Diva was stoked about it, loved it, was really, really relaxed. And what I found really cool was how you worked a lot with gapping. So this idea of like, you were mentioning it earlier, like being off the skin, being, away from the body a little bit. And tell us a little bit more about that. Because I think for a lot of people, they're like, oh, that's so woo-woo, that's so this, that's so that. And, I know I've tried to be in barns where I'm like way off the body, and I feel like it's even like an edge for me to work with that, because I'm like, people are walking by like, she's not even touching the horse. Like, so.
It's funny you say that, because it is something I do clarify to new clients. Sometimes I'm not touching your horse, but rest assured, I am doing something for your horse.
Totally.
And it's when I start pointing those things out to them that then they start recognizing it. And it just depends on the horse's tolerance and amount of tension, and their nervous system is different than ours. And an interesting thing about their nervous system is, and about horses in general, which is very neat, if you direct attention or energy over a spot in a horse's body that there is accumulated tension, they will release it if you hold long enough. They can't help it. Their nervous system will release it. I can't tell you why more than that, other than it just works. And time and time again, you see it. You hold long enough over a place where they've shown you by their subtle signs of release that they will release that tension. They just do. And that's very fascinating to me. And you don't have to be touching them to do that. And I think as humans, we learn this a lot in Masterson, and we talk about it in all of our training. And even when I teach people now and help out with clinics, we are very much grabby. From the time we are
I was going to say, we love touching things.
And grabbing.
We want to touch horses and grab them and like love them and squeeze them.
That's very much a human trait.
Very much so.
So, and another thing we do is if something doesn't work, we go harder. It's like against everything in us if something isn't working to soften. And I'm going to say, most of the time, not 100%, but darn near close. If you have a feeling that there's, tension pattern or something in a joint or junction or area of a horse's body, you kind of want to go hard at it, and you'll try and you're not getting anywhere. And you're like, why am I not getting anywhere? And then you're like, right, soften. And you soften, and then you get those big releases. So yeah, and softening sometimes means, you know, going from I didn't explain pressures, but from like a massaging or pressing to just sitting on the skin to sometimes being an inch or 2 or 3 off the skin. And sometimes you'll get the bigger releases when you're 3 inches off of them because they can't handle you touching them. That's how uncomfortable it is for them. Yeah. So yeah, really neat. Very challenging. Still challenging. Will probably always be challenging to not go harder and always try and soften first. So and there's a place for it, like deep tissue massage and things like that for sure. But it's interesting as well, right? Like I said before, if something hurts, horses brace. So if there's something that's sore and we go hard at it, they're going to brace and they're going to tune us out. Yeah. So if we can stay soft, they're going to be more receptive to it. Is the thought.
I love it.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Well, and I think it has symbolism, or, you know, sort of it moves into other spaces in horse. Yeah. In connection with horses, right? Because you see this under saddle, you see this in groundwork, you see this in these all these places, right? Where this human tendency to grab and get hard and get stronger, right? And overpower.
For sure. And then again, it's just about reading them too, because I'm not going to say yesterday I wasn't working on a horse and I had my hand on its tubercocci and pushing and rubbing, and I was using all of my body weight to like massage this horse's muscles around there, right? Because it's an attachment point just below there for lots of muscles. But he wanted that. He was into it, right? So it's not saying sometimes I'm not using a lot of pressure. Again, it's just reading every single horse is different. Every single amount of pressure, every single spot is always going to be different. So it's just reading them and giving them what they want, pretty much. Yeah. So I definitely do get sweaty sometimes. It's not all off the skin, but it just, again, depends on the amount of tension and each individual horse.
I like that, because you'll tend to know, because those are the ones that are like a lean in India.
Yeah, for sure. Right?
And but again, you're reading the body cues and the release cues and things, right? So
yeah, I just had this pop into my mind, but there's some under the tail points that we do. It's trigger points, but pressure points underneath the tail. And sometimes I'll put my thumb up there, and you'll have horses that actually want to sit on you. They'll try and back you into a wall to get you to push harder and harder into their pelvis, right? And that's them dictating it. And in that case, it's okay. Go harder. That's what they want. And when they back off, well, then back off. So
and what a trust exercise, I think, as well, body work is. To like, okay, like am I like tuning in? Am I really getting what's needed here? So
totally. I think too, I know we talked about kind of more, that was a pretty big, like, to me, eye-opening success case, you know, learned so much with that horse that I had mentioned that was been able to ride through the winter. But even last week, I worked for a new client and a new horse for the first time, and, you know, just getting the messages afterwards. I always say, hey, how's your horse going? And like, oh my gosh, he has moved like he's never moved before, right? And just getting comments like that, you know, you're making a difference for those horses, right? And especially with riders who can really feel what's going on in their horse. But I always just love hearing that. And I love hearing that people can feel how their horses are doing too. Like I just love getting that feedback on how you've made them more comfortable and able to use their body better.
Yeah. It's a great feeling. Yeah. For sure. And so I want to, if we can, go more deeply into what some of the ways that, how do I explain this? So one of the things I learned long ago was around bladder meridian, and I'm sure lots of our listeners, some of them might know what that meridian's about, some might not. Ting points is another thing. So can we dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. You know, Jim's, I guess, goal of his whole project, or not project, modality, method, bodywork in general, is to have every horse in the world experience the bladder meridian at least once. Why this one is so important, he says, and well, I see it as well, It's one of the first things we're taught, is that it runs through the key junctions of the horse's body. So their pole, their neck, shoulder, withers junction, their cervical thoracic junction, which is neck, shoulders, withers, and then their lumbosacral junction as well. It runs from between their ears all the way down over their withers, along their spine on both sides, over their rump, down to their hock, down to the back of their heel bulbs. Probably not the best visual, but it's online everywhere. You can look it up.
Yes.
But again, it's what we're doing is finding those signs of tension and release. So using a method called search, response, stay, release. And you can do this anywhere on your horse's body. You do not have to be on a meridian. You do not have to be on one specific spot. You can do it anywhere. And the idea is you search, and what you're searching for is some sort of response from the horse. So a blink, a lick, a chew, a chin twitch, very subtle. And you can be touching or just off the horse's body. And where you search, you find a response. You then stay there until you get a release. So search, response, stay, release. And you do this about inch by inch all over the horse's body. So you'll search for that blink, you'll find that blink, you'll stay there until you get another response. And that response can be anywhere from, a longer blink, a softer blink, a bigger twitch. You might get something crazy like a yawn. This happens very often just by doing the bladder meridian. Once you get that, you move on to the next spot. Then you go search, you move an inch or two down. You just go very slowly. Like it should take you at least 10 to 15 minutes to do this on each side of the horse if you're doing it properly. It's just a good way to get in tune with your horse as well. And then you find the next spot. As soon as they blink, you stop. If you're unsure, you can back off and go back to that spot. And if they blink again, you're in the right spot. And then you stay there till you get it, till you get another release. So search, response, stay, release. And that is pretty much what the entire Masterson method is based on. Search, response, stay, release, no matter what technique you're doing. They also, lots of the time as well, people who do other modalities, they can, if they do Masterson method training, they can then take that and apply it to all other things like, chiropractic, massage, osteopathy, using that search, response, stay, release technique. You just know that you're in the right spot for that. So very neat. And the bladder meridian is something that's taught in the 2-day clinics. It's one of the first things that's taught. I teach it to lots of my clients and people who are interested as something to do to get really in tune and check in with your horse. And because it goes through all those junctions, you can really make a big difference with just that, if that's all you know.
Absolutely.
So, for those of you who do not know or have not looked it up, look it up. You'll think it's crazy when you watch it. You'll be like, I can't do that. And you'll go do it on your horse and be like, I can do that. And it's this really cool feeling. So
totally. Well, and also to geek out on the bladder meridian a little bit more. Bladder meridian is part of the water element in Chinese medicine, paired with the kidney meridian, and really, really important for helping your horse to ground and release tension. And the main emotion in these meridians that we look at is fear. And so if you have an anxious horse, I'm assuming this is really, really helpful. I know working bladder can be really helpful. And the bladder meridian has an association meridian with points for all the other meridians on it. So that can be helpful as well. It's a great meridian.
It is. It's really neat. And you're right. For those really anxious, nervous horses, I will do that the first session. And sometimes I will just do that. And then I will teach the owner how to do that so they can continue doing it. I really like giving homework, especially things like that for owners to get more in tune with their horses. Also, if people do homework between sessions, I can get a lot deeper with the other techniques that I do. There is some quite soft techniques, but lots of the techniques I do a lot in movement techniques, as well. So I do something called lateral cervical flexion. So moving out of the cervical vertebrae in a relaxed state to help release tension around those. A healthy joint is one that has full mobility. So if we can help release the joints, the muscles and tension around the joints, then they can move better. So that's a lot of what I'm doing as well. So the basic stuff is a lot of point work, soft touches, things like that. But the more advanced work is a lot of movement techniques and then reading signs of release and tension in movement. So not like walking. They're not walking. They can't walk. Sometimes I do get them walking if I'm doing like shoulder releases or endoscapulas or something like that, because it can help. But I mean movement, like I'm moving their body in a relaxed state. So I'll be moving their neck or lifting their head up or bringing their legs forward or down and back, things like that. And then reading those signs of release and in movement techniques. So yeah.
Nice.
Really cool.
It's great to be so in tune. So as you know, I love craniosacral and training in osteopathy. We do a lot. So, and I didn't really know that there was like craniosacral aspects in Masterson. So
it's mainly just techniques. So there's just some basic techniques that we're kind of shown, with your finger up under their lip in their mouth and holding pressure points. And just, again, thinking about movement in different parts of their cranium and things like that. It doesn't go into we don't go into a ton of information and learning about all the things that you do because you're a wizard. You really are. But it's just some basic things and things that I've also learned from my mentors and things like that. They'll just show me and we'll practice, and the horses seem to love it. So, but it is on my list of things to do is some more courses in craniosacral.
Ooh, I might be able to help you with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mainly because the horses love it.
Yes.
And there's so much going on for them in those areas that I think there's huge use for it.
Well, this podcast will probably come out after this, but on Monday we are announcing an equine craniosacral level 1 workshop with myself, Elise Miki, and Steph Schwab. So
sign me up.
I know, for any of you out there as well.
Yeah.
A little plug on that one. Keep an eye on my website and Facebook for that. But yeah.
Oh, this is so exciting. This is what happens when you do podcasts. You find out what to do. Which is really neat as well, because there's not a lot of continuing education here for body workers. Which leads well into where I was recently and why I'm so excited on this.
Right, we got to talk about that. I'd almost forgotten.
Yeah, so
Katey went on an adventure recently, which
really
I was very envious of.
Yeah, so I went down to the Animal Rehab Institute in West Palm Beach, that is owned by a lady named Arlene White, who is a physiotherapist for humans and animals, mainly horses, for a dissection. So
yes, which is why I'm so envious, by the way. I know not all people get envious about digging into cadavers, but me, yes.
Yeah, me too. I was super excited about that. I mean, I went down for a few reasons. The main thing I was going down for was my next coaching session with one of my mentors for Masterson Method. So I did that in Florida on the Monday, and then I shadowed my mentor, who, did I say Becky Tenges? Did I just say that? No, her name's Becky Tenges. And I shadowed her at the Winter Equestrian Festival in Palm Beach down there. Crazy horse show. Saw her work on horses for 2 days, which is really neat because there is not a lot of Masterson Method practitioners in Canada. In fact, there's only a couple, and most of them are very far away. So go see body workers doing the same modality and to learn from them, I have to go to the States usually. So she let me shadow her, which was fantastic. And then there's a group of eight of us ladies from all over the United States and some from Canada. And we came together for the 3-day long dissection. And Lori Mueller is the one who did that. And it was absolutely insane. She did such a good job. We did a full front leg from scapula down. And then we did hind leg from hip joint down. And it took 3 days to do that.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I mean, I'd done from the knee down in a 4-leg before, because when I was in Farrier school, we had to dissect them and then put them back together. But she did such a good job of going into detail on every muscle, tendon, ligament, everything that she possibly could. But the main thing that came up the whole weekend was fascia. Fascia was the word of everything. It, I mean, I knew fascia was important, but I didn't really know how important.
Oh, so important.
Until this, until you see it and you see that it's everywhere and connects everything and
interwoven through every tissue,
everything. Even
has they're doing studies now that it has its own communication system.
Yes.
Like a high speed. This is like going from dial up to high speed, everyone. Like if the nervous system is high speed internet, this is or dial up internet, the fascial connections are like high speed, light speed. Yeah, it's really cool.
It was crazy. It, and then just to peel it apart and see how much of it there was, and every muscle and like everything was fascia.
And well, I think there was a belief for a long time that fascia went around things, like encased them, but now it's like, no, it goes like through things and is innervating and is so tell us about the fascinating stuff.
Fascinating stuff, right? Like it would there's just layers of it around everything. And so every muscle that she pulled back, every tendon, everything, there was just fascia going into it, coming out of it, wrapped around it. Like it was everywhere. And then, we didn't get to do full fascial trains or anything like that. Because we were missing 3/4 of the horse.
Yes.
But
it's helpful to have the torso.
There was no torso. That would have been really cool. But just to see how connected it is, and knowing that there's fascial trains that run from the right front of the horse all the way to the left hind, and how that is affected. And we actually saw it working on horses as well, right? There's some horses, they have to move in unison, but it's because their fascia is so tight they can't not. Right?
Absolutely.
They are just bound by their fascia.
Well, and then you see them having trouble picking up like a canter lead or something like that. So like trot is fine, but like a canter lead, and they're like, nope, like can't work that out in my system.
No, and and people, I think we don't even talk about it, right? Like, oh, they must be tight in this muscle, right? It must be the muscle, or it must be so. But what about the fascia? Is it the fascia?
It could be all the way from the cranium.
Yeah, it could be all the way from the cranium because it wraps all the way around and all your organs and everything. Yeah.
Well, and did you know?
I don't know.
This is what I'm learning. That the pancreas it connects to all of the fascia in the body.
No, I did not know.
Yeah.
But I believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. And in humans, T9, thoracic vertebrae 9 is the pivot point for the fascia. Yes.
Interesting.
So if you find that you have pain in your mid back all the time, it's a good thing to look at, because that's where everything crosses over.
Where is it in horses? We talked about it.
That is a good question. I'm guessing it's further back, like more sort of T10, T11, just because they've got more stuff going on.
Laura would be so upset with me. We did talk about this.
Did you?
It's my brain.
It's okay. It's okay. We'll come back to it. If we remember, we'll put it on the resources. I would love to know that for sure. Yeah, because I'm sure it's quite different in horses. But in humans, T9 and the pancreas. And so you'll find the pancreas will often get pulled around in the abdomen. But
very neat.
Yes. So fascia. And so when you were going into the limbs and the legs, like what other things really came to light for you?
What I think the most beneficial thing for me, it just seeing where the muscles were located and what they looked like, because we do so much studying of anatomy from books, and you color them, and you're like, oh yes, that's the color. And then it attaches to this tendon, which then inserts here. And this is how it affects the movement of the leg. And you can look at that in a book as many times as you want and still not really understand it.
Totally.
But we had the tendons separated. We were pulling on them to flex the foot and extend the foot, like the extensor tendons and the flexor tendons. And then what muscles those went to higher up and what they attach to, right? Because I'd never seen that. I'd only seen the tendons. But then like, oh, right, they attach to a muscle, right?
Well, isn't it interesting how we think of things so pieced apart, right? It's like, that's a tendon, that's a muscle. The tendon actually like is a continuation of that.
Right. Totally. So
and then fascially, it's a continuation of everything.
Yes. Yeah. So it's really cool. They kind of even though I'd done it years ago, to separate all the tendons and pull them and see how it moved the leg. This horse in particular was super fascinating. It was actually Arlene's horse, who lived a very long and happy life. that he had some really interesting bony changes in his top hock joints. And that was super fascinating. So to see what those changes look like inside, to me, was really fascinating. And that there's actually inside of the joint, there was actually ridges in the bone that were so sharp they cut through my latex glove. So yeah, so just to see, and this horse was just still going. Well, he's not ridden or anything, he was retired, but to see kind of what they'll go through and what's actually going on inside after.
Was it accurate to what I'm assuming he'd had diagnoses and x-rays and other things?
Yes. Yep. Okay. Like they were expecting something to be there, but just because you wouldn't have been able to see that on the x-rays, totally, the inside of the joint, and the articulating surfaces there. But yeah, super interesting just to see inside and what that was. Yeah, I found that very fascinating. And I didn't know the horse before, but I'm sure, that must have been painful for him too. Like, it just shows how stoic they really are to still be moving around and seemingly like happy, but they're just, to me, they're just such amazing animals. And, but
look, can you tell us a little bit, because I'm always fascinated. I've not done a dissection yet, which is so sad to me. It's on my list. So when you're going into, say, the hock joint or the stifle joint, was there anything that came? Because I know these are areas for a lot of horses that can be, zones for them. Was there anything you noticed about those joints that sort of stuck with you?
Probably. There was so much. Not like all. I can't really say in particular, mainly because my brain doesn't remember details all the time. But
your brain is like my brain.
Yeah, you're like, that's great. If I look back at my notes, yes. But nothing in particular. The amount of fluid that came into them, and when we opened them up, the amount of pressure that was in the joints, they like popped. Like, so when you when we opened some of them, they'd be. Because they're pressurized. Because the synovial membranes are pressurized. Yeah, and even though this horse, these legs had been frozen, they'd been frozen for a few weeks and then pulled out, they still had the pressure and the pressurized joints and to like hear them. And then the joint that had all the bony changes, the amount of fluid that came out from around that was very interesting. There was very they have this synovial fluid in the joints. This was just an extreme amount, and it had, I guess it was bog stem that had turned into bone stem is what they described it as. But then the amount of like fluid that was surrounding all those things that came pouring out, I was fascinated. I was in there poking around, like seeing where it all came from. And
do you think it was the body's way of sort of coping with the injury?
Maybe.
Yeah, sure. like put a bunch of fluid in there to get it some buoyancy, maybe, or
maybe get it to feel a bit better. I'm not sure, but that was super fascinating. The hock joints themselves are very, very interesting. And that was also very hard to take apart.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. So we tried to peel them back and cut them open as gracefully as possible, and then try to
so many ligaments ligaments between every single bone, right? And then
so that was very interesting to me. And then too, where all the tendons sit, and they're like secured in there. They have like places on the bone where they sit nicely and they just slide over. It's like they have these little cradles that they sit in when they go over, like the hock and the fetlock and things like that. So I don't know, they're just very interesting to me. But I'm not the best at names. Anatomy is not my strong suit. I used to be much better, but that's why I'm going to continue going to these things and keep up with anatomy, because it fascinates me. And I think it's so important. And even going to touch horses afterwards, you just have an idea of where those muscles, even if you don't know the name, I have lots of apps that get me the name, but even if you don't know the names, you can see and feel like where they come and go and what directions they're going and whether they have to do with flexion or extension, things like that. So as a body worker, it gives you a much better understanding of how everything works. And then I, sometimes like, what's the name of that muscle? And I have this really cool app now because everyone had cool apps for anatomy.
Ooh.
And you like look it up and you're like, oh, that's the one. So.
Oh, okay. And what do you remember? What
it's called Horse Anatomy 3D.
Okay.
I think, and it's.
There you go, everybody. Horse Anatomy 3D.
Anatomy 3D. I think it was $13 or something.
I'm going to check that out.
Yeah.
I have lots of human anatomy apps that I adore. But definitely check that out. Because I know for a lot of people that can be a blind spot. Like the anatomy piece, because it just feels super overwhelming to try to remember stuff. But if you have it on hand, you can get in there more.
Mm-hmm. And I think it was really, it was so neat being around all of these women there. There's a man too, but it was mainly women, but who are so knowledgeable, who have spent years educating themselves and working with horses. I mean, Lori is an osteopath.
I was wondering,
and Arlene does physiotherapy, and Becky is a Masterson Method Certified Practitioner who teaches and helps create the programs with Jim, and she's done lots of other things as well, and also works on humans. She worked on me, and she had magic hands, but we don't have a lot of continuing education here very often. So it's just so neat to be around such a cool group of ladies who are all, doing more courses and seeing what's out there. And there's just so much more available over there. So you go there and you're like, yes, I'm so driven. What's next? What am I going to do? What courses can I take? And it's just so good to, continuing education is huge, like there's so much to learn, and I just want to keep learning, and there's so many things I want to do. Next, I'd love to do some more saddle finning. I'd love to do some more craniosacral stuff. The tack to me is a very important one for bodywork. So that's next. And where I want to go with Masterson Method is really, and bodywork in general, is teaching, because I can go and work on 5, 6, 7 horses a day. Great. That's fantastic. But how cool would it be if I could teach owners to do this with their horses?
Totally.
Teach more people. And that's, where I want to go, because I can make a horse feel good and build our relationship once a week or once every 2 weeks or once a month. But I think if humans are deepening their relationships with their horses, and able to help them out, like what a cool world this would be, right? Like
totally
give people the tools to help their horses. And then, then I can come and do tune-ups, right? Where I can get deeper and do more things because the horse has been exposed to more. And then,
you're like that. Fully supporting you in that.
Thank
that
you.
Decision and whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Because I think, for a lot of us, it even supports our training and our, so many areas of our equine relationships, because this is the way they communicate, right? Is through these subtleties and small movements and stuff that, like you said at the beginning, we often just miss.
Yeah.
We don't see it.
Yeah. I've never spent so much time staring at horses' facial expressions, really, as I have in the last 3 years. I just watch horses' faces all of the time, and I never get sick of it. There's so many things that their faces can say and their bodies can tell us, and I just spend hours. I do spend hours doing it, and I love it. It's great, right? And so be able to share that with other people is kind of where my passion is and where my goals are.
Yeah. And I really like that shift up, because I know for myself as a body worker, I sometimes get stuck in the anatomy and this has to go here and I need to go and do it this way, or we'll have a pattern of which we treat. And I think there's such a beauty in like this creative, like collaborative process that you're engaging with horses. It's like, what do you need? Like, what is up for you today?
Yeah.
And really, what does it look like to read that or connect with that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Totally.
Absolutely. We made it through.
We did.
Katey was a little nervous when she came in, but
I was hella nervous.
She chilled right out. It's
funny because I came in, I was like, there's some notes that I have and I should maybe touch on these things, and then I was like, nope, this isn't working. I just have to talk.
Yes. And then she just started talking, and here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are 47 minutes later, doing great.
Yeah. I think the one thing, I think I meant to say this earlier as well, but maybe I did say it, but there's so many times in our life, like with horses, growing up and then learning and even doing farrier work, and I work with a vet as well now. And I started this, what Masterson Method really made me start doing is following my gut feelings around horses. And there's so many times in life where you get that feeling in your stomach, and all you horse people, I know you've had it, where you're like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have done that, or maybe that wasn't the right thing. And it's really influenced a lot of the time by people around you, or things that have happened, or scenarios that you're in, or you just don't know what to do. But what I've learned is that when I get that feeling in my stomach, or that pre-feeling in my stomach that's going to be that feeling in my stomach, is that I don't do it ever. And I had some feedback recently on something that I was doing, and it's not that I didn't respect what that person was showing me, is that it gave me that feeling in my stomach watching them do it. And I said, I'm not ever going to do that. I appreciate that you do, but I'm not going to. Just because of the feeling they have in my stomach about it. And it's not like I've done something terrible. It just doesn't resonate with me. And this type of body work and listening to horses has made me listen to myself more. And that is, like, to me, huge. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And I saw that in real time here, because Katey said, okay, we need to stop for a second. And we turned off the recording and just took a moment and like reassessed and came back to it, which I love, like, that you didn't force yourself to push through. It was like, this is where we're at. So I think that, like, that comes back around to everything that we're working with here, and just this really good space to be in, of trusting yourself.
100%. It's a path. It's a process.
Sure is. Sure is.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, not easy. I think, it takes a lot of courage to walk a path like this. So I'm really glad you are. Yeah.
You too.
You're doing great work.
Thank you.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe we can get Katey like on video sometime if she's ever into it.
Like with a horse or by myself?
With a horse.
Oh, that's great.
Teaching all of us how to do this stuff, because she's such a good teacher. Was really impressed with your work.
Thank you.
Yeah, last year at the retreat.
It's much easier with a horse.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They kind of, there's something that goes on when you've got a horse with you.
Yeah.
So
it's that peace. That's the thing. Horses bring peace for me. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For the moment though, everybody, I think you can look it up, like bladder meridian release Masterson. To see that video. And be one of the ones that checks it out and tries it out on your horses. I know for myself, it's Diva loves that stuff. I should really do it more often.
You should.
Or ever. So that it just, like, it's really a great reminder for me, and for anybody out there that has played with this or would like to. This stuff can be incredibly beneficial for our horses. So, and let's spread it around. Let's spread it around and make happier horses everywhere around the world.
For sure.
That's what we're here for.
Totally. Yeah. If you want help with that, you can definitely give me a shout.
Yeah. How do they get in touch with you?
Good question. I'm on Instagram at KCEquine Wellness. My email is also kcequinewellness@gmail.com. You can give me a call. Yeah. You want my number?
Sure. If you feel like giving it out to the world, you can.
You can get it from Alexa. I'm also on Facebook, KCEquine Wellness. Everything is KCEquine Wellness. So put it into social media. You can contact me that way. And for individual sessions or opportunities to learn things to help your horse out as well. I work anywhere from the peninsula down to Victoria up to Qualicum right now.
Okay.
So
nice.
Absolutely.
Nice. So if you're in Vancouver Island. And you're feeling called, let Katey know.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Make your horse feel good.
Totally. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
You did it.
You did great.
We done it.
Yeah, we've done it. We've been talking about this for a long time. So happy that we made it happen, and hope you all out there enjoyed that, learned a little something today. And we will be back. Maybe Katey will want to come back one day and share some other stuff.
100%.
So okay. Good. Looking forward to that. And as far as the podcast, I'll be back with more episodes soon. I've got exams in like a week or two, so it might be after that, everybody, but rest assured there will be more.
You'll be back.
Yes, I'll be back.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.